Salvador. See, it's not a true dichotomy that we have all of this torture, mayhem, and rights violations, or a completely open border. I don't know who the hell was able to convince you of that. Maybe you convinced yourself because you have to find a way to cope with the fact that you support Trump, even though he has the blood of so many on his hands.
The blood. Why are you so dramatic, Dean? Like, why can't you just live in the real world, man?
I'm sorry, did Alex Preddy not bleed out after he was murdered? And then was his murderer not defended by the president?
Well, you know how you don't get
dramatic
murdered?
under Trump.
You know how you don't get murdered? You don't be an idiot. You don't.
Oh, okay. So you think that the legal standard that justifies LEOs to take the lives of others is quote unquote being an idiot?
Yes, he was being an idiot. Yes, it's a sad situation, but yes, he was being an idiot.
Wow, you're a piece of shit. So what specifically was he doing that justified the LEOs to take his life?
You know, have you ever heard a thing called escalation of force? Do you know what that means?
Are you gonna answer my question?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to answer your question, but I'm gonna ask you a question first.
Oh, well, I don't think that a question is an answer to a question.
Let me ask you something. If Alex Preddy...
I don't want you to ask me anything. I want you to answer the question I asked you. What specific actions did Alex Preddy engage in that gave warrant to the LEOs to shoot and kill him?
He was acting in a manner in which the law enforcement officers felt threatened for their lives.
Okay, so what was he doing to make them feel reasonably threatened for their lives?
What was he doing?
Yeah.
I wasn't there. Were you there? But I saw the videos. And from the videos, it's very clear he wasn't abiding by whatever lawful order
so what was he doing to make them reasonably fear for their lives? Because remember, you'd have to be able to like specify what he was doing to make them reasonably feel for
resisting,
their lives,
maybe
in order to justify the shooting.
Resisting.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I actually don't agree that he was resisting. But even if he was resisting, merely resisting does not justify.
Video that I saw
okay, go ahead and interrupt me. That's fine. You can interrupt me. I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah. The video we saw was clearly him. You know, he was clearly complying with everything the officers were telling him. He wasn't doing anything in the wrong. This guy was, you know, he was a martyr, man. He was just an innocent guy down there doing the right things, just trying to peacefully protest, right?
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you for the interruption. Let's get back to the facts. So you said the action that Alex Preddy engaged in that amounted to giving justification to the LEOs to shoot and kill him was this act of resisting. So first and foremost,
no, that's not what I said.
That is exactly what you said.
You're taking what I said out of context, Dean.
I'm not taking what you said out of context. I asked you what he did that justified the LEOs to turn around, shoot, and kill him. And you said, and I quote, he was resisting. You can't gaslight me into believing otherwise because this is what you said less than 60 seconds ago. Maybe you're now internally understanding why that's a bad answer to the question, because maybe you can acknowledge here that merely resisting doesn't justify an LEO to turn around, shoot, and kill you. Well, try again. Tell me, what was Alex Preddy doing that justified the LEOs to take his life?
If you'd quit muting me. But like I said before, not even 2 minutes ago, his resistance led the law enforcement officers to feel fearful for their life. Simple as that. And in that situation, here's the thing too. If those ICE agents had been unalived, you wouldn't even have the first thought about this in your head. You wouldn't get up here and say how bad it was of these people to protest and how horrible it was that these law enforcement officers lost their lives. They go out there every day in these crazy cities like Minneapolis, LA, New York, wherever. They go out there every day and they risk their lives and their families' well-beings to do something to just do their job. And you got idiots like that are out there resisting them and causing them trouble wherever they go. They're doxing them. They're doxing their families online. Mm-hmm. It's complete bullshit, man. And for you to support them is crazy. Mm-hmm. Is it sad that the man lost his life? Absolutely. I wish he wouldn't have lost his life. However, his actions put him in that scenario. He did that. His actions did it. It wasn't the ICE officers. It wasn't the Republicans. It wasn't Trump. It was him.
Yeah.
Take some personal responsibility, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want to be unalived by a police officer, don't fuck with a police officer. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that the GOP has lost it. You guys used to stand for something, but now anymore, it's just comply or die. Am I right? Like, first and foremost, you're interrupting me every single time I'm opening. Why don't you go ahead and interrupt me again? That's fine. Talk as much as you want.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you had something to say. You just cut me off. Please finish your breath.
I think it's funny that you mentioned comply or die. Is that a horrible thing to, if you're at a protest, a violent protest at that, do you think it's a horrible idea to comply? You think it's like stupid to comply?
is this a question that you want me to answer?
Yeah. I'm asking you. Do you think it's stupid to comply with a lawful order?
After I answer your question, can I finally speak more than 3 words without you cutting me off?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Because when you interrupt me, it makes it clear that you're very scared of me. Because when I actually will have an opportunity to respond to your bullshit, that you'll be debunked. And you don't want that to happen, so then you don't let me respond to your bullshit, which is why you interrupt me. Perfectly. So first, I'll answer your question about compliance. I generally think it's a good thing for citizens to comply with lawful orders directed at them from LEOs. Why? Well, it's for their safety. Okay, typically the citizen is the one without the gun, the LEO is the one with the gun. And unfortunately, we've seen many scenarios of officers engaging in the use of excessive force, killing somebody, amounting to murder, merely because they didn't comply. And what I'd argue here is actually because of people like you that create the incentive structure that allows for and permisses LEOs to engage in the use of excessive force. You are an historically illiterate and a lawfully illiterate MAGA scumbag who thinks that officers can do whatever they want as long as it looks cool or furthers the Trump agenda. When in all reality, you don't know what constitutional rights people in this country have. You don't know what lawful standard justifies an LEO to take a life. It's all just like a fun video game to you where, oh, he wasn't complying, therefore we could put 12 bullets in his back. But unfortunately, because of the 2nd, 4th, 14th Amendment and SCOTUS case law like Connor v. Graham, that's just simply not the case. So first and foremost, let's go over that SCOTUS case law. Let's figure out what justifies and authorizes an LEO to take a life. So we're going to be looking at Connor v. Graham. Connor v. Graham tells us, once again, this is a SCOTUS court case, that a LEO-engaged shooting is authorized and justified given that in consideration of the totality of the circumstances, there was this objectively reasonable standard met of an imminent threat, okay? An imminent threat that the people within the immediate vicinity of the person purporting that imminent threat found themselves in, of death, right? And when we're talking about Alex Preddy, that imminent threat just simply didn't exist. Merely saying that he was resisting is not an imminent threat, and that has been ruled on. And the thing about Alex Preddy is it's not even clear he was resisting. After the agents had tackled him to the ground, A, he was maced in the face, B, he was pistol whipped in the head, then C, he had 7 dudes on top of him pulling him in every which direction. But regardless of these circumstantial facts, at the end of the day, he was an unarmed man on the ground on all 4 before an ICE agent turned around and shot him dead. And because of that, there was no imminent threat that any of the LEOs found themselves in, and any argument otherwise will always be arbitrary and ultimately futile. Like, for instance, earlier you told us that he was resisting and that was the imminent threat. If I was to give you the microphone to explain in very precise, keen detail exactly how he was resisting, and exactly how that put the lives of the officers on the line and purported an imminent threat, you wouldn't be able to. And let's go ahead and prove that now. I want you to explain in high detail precisely what he was doing to resist, and then I want you to explain to us all how that purported an imminent threat to the LEOs, where if they didn't kill him, he probably would have killed them.
Clearly, your representation of whatever case you cited is incorrect. I think you're referencing Barnes and Felix. Is that right?
Connor v. Graham. Felix is from 2025. That actually is relevant to it because Felix is where they evaluated that has to be in consideration of the totality of the circumstances.
Well, if you read the law or read the opinions on this, you would understand the totality of the circumstances, right? What do you think the totality of the circumstances means? It's not, oh, he's just, and once again, you've taken my words out of context. I didn't say he resisted, therefore death. That's not what I said at all. I said his actions led to the officers feeling for their lives. They felt threatened for their lives. And you and I can't sit here on TikTok and not prove that. You and I cannot sit here on TikTok and say how these people felt when this person was actively resisting arrest.
So what actions led to them to feel that way? By the way, you're arguing in one breath that we can't adjudicate how they felt, but arguing simultaneously that we can't adjudicate that they felt reasonably fearful for their lives.
Yes, you can adjudicate that because
so what
you're not on a jury.
What actions did he engage in that made them reasonably fear for their lives?
From what we could see in the video, which, like I said, you and I weren't there, so we don't know the totality of the circumstances. So we can't sit here and play jury and judge. But what we can do is we can see what we saw in the video.
Somebody getting murdered, right? I'd say in these clear-cut cases we can. But I'm interrupting you. Tell us, what specific actions did he engage in that reasonably made the officers fear for their lives?
Okay, first reasonable action, he was resisting arrest. He's clearly on the ground.
Resisting. Listen, if somebody resists arrest...
Are you going to interrupt me?
I guess I am, yes. If somebody resists arrest, this doesn't mean that the officer can turn around and kill them. People resist arrest every single day.
Of
the punishment for resisting arrest, is like maybe a $200 fine or a night in jail. Merely resisting arrest does not amount to an imminent threat upon the life of an LEO.
Are you going to listen?
Yes, and then this is where you say totality of the circumstances. And so the relevant fact to the totality of the circumstances would be how he was resisting arrest and how that played into the justification.
That's not necessarily the case. The real totality of the circumstances is you've got a guy that's armed, not saying that is the reason that he should be unalived, but he was resisting arrest. He clearly wasn't following lawful commands, or he would have been in the situation in the first place. These reasons could leave a reasonable person like me to believe that these officers felt threatened. They felt that their life was in danger. They see a gun, and I'll be honest with you, I think it was an accidental killing. I think that, like I said, it's a tragedy, and the guy should still be alive. There's no doubt about it. However, he put himself in that situation. If he doesn't put himself in that situation,
wait. I just want you to go over the facts of the case that you believe authorized the LEOs to shoot and kill him. So far, you've told us he was resisting arrest, he didn't comply with lawful orders, and he had a gun.
Yeah.
Those are the three relevant facts?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. If you're a police officer and you've got somebody
that's clarifying question?
Sure.
Okay, here's my first clarifying question. What lawful orders did he not comply with?
Clearly, they were trying to detain him or remove him from the situation that they were in with the woman.
Okay,
I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know what was said. I don't know what he did, but clearly he was escalating the situation.
So can you answer the question? What lawful orders did he not comply with?
I wasn't there. I don't know.
So then how do you know that he didn't comply with a lawful order?
Because he's very clearly resisting. When officers are acting that aggressively...
So when we're watching that video, how do we know that... What was he resisting?
He was resisting arrest or resisting whatever commands that the officers were giving him.
How do we know that he was resisting arrest when we watch the video? Because from my perspective, I don't see a man who's resisting arrest. I'm seeing a man who's being identified as an enemy by untrained ICE agents that then all hop on top of him and pull him inside.
That's because you've got a biased view of things.
And that's why I'm asking you to clarify it for me. So when we watch the video, what specific actions is he engaging in that amount to him clearly as resisting?
Outside of like Jim Crow era, 1960s, even into the 70s, can you tell me one time in this country's history where law enforcement officers have just decidedly gone and jumped, 4 or 5 officers have jumped on an innocent person and held him to the ground?
Okay. So first and foremost, if you think that officers engaging in excessive force doesn't happen, then clearly, I mean, you're just
I didn't say that.
Swine.
Once again,
but I won't allow you to pivot away from answering my question with a question back to me. But once again, I'll just re-ask the question. So we saw the video. What actions was he engaging in that clearly amounted to him resisting?
That amounted to him resisting?
Yeah, what actions? Because we have it on video.
Well, it seems like the officers were after a lady. They pushed the lady, or something happened with her, and then he jumped in between the two. And then the officers clearly wanted him to get away, and he didn't listen.
Okay, so they wanted him to get away. Did they communicate that to him?
Sure, I'm sure they did. I doubt they just.
Can you show me that on video where we know that they communicated?
No, but you can't show me that they didn't either.
Oh, okay. So you're basically saying that you don't have any evidence for what you believe?
Well, like I said, you and I weren't there, so neither one of us has...
Okay, so if you don't have evidence, this would be the necessary evidence that they gave him a lawful command to get away, and he disobeyed that lawful command. That would be the evidence that you'd have to have in order to justify your view that he was resisting.
Something along those lines, yes.
Okay, and you don't have that evidence.
No, but I have reality, right? Like I said...
Well, if you don't have the evidence that he was resisting, then you can't reasonably... One moment. Okay, if you don't have the evidence that he was resisting, then you can't believe that he was resisting reasonably. And the argument from the inverse, saying that, well, if he wasn't resisting, then they wouldn't have jumped on top of him, is also a lie. Okay, because this argument would necessitate that it is impossible for LEOs to engage in the use of excessive force. Okay, and we clearly know that's not true.
Sure. Yeah, they absolutely have used excessive force in the past and probably will in the future too. But that's not a justification to say you can't. A reasonable person wouldn't say, you know what, this guy wasn't resisting. How many cases or how often does it happen where police officers or law enforcement officers, whoever, just go and attack innocent people? But it doesn't happen.
When you don't have the evidence that he was resisting and your only argument is that he was resisting or else they wouldn't have jumped him, then you can't make the argument that they were justified in taking his life.
Okay.
Essentially, what you're saying here is that there could be a group of LEOs, and if this group of LEOs wants to kill somebody, they could do it legally if they first go up to this person, they beat them over the head, they dogpile them, and then they shoot them in the back. Because if they beat them in the head and dogpile them first, then apparently that means that that person was resisting and their life can be taken.
Can I talk? You're going to keep muting me?
Yes. Before you do, there's one last thing that I want to bring up here, because you also brought up the consideration of the totality of the circumstances in the Felix Godis case after mentioning the fact that he had a gun. So first and foremost, it is a very dangerous suggestion that an LEO is authorized in killing somebody merely because they're in possession of a firearm. The Second, Fourth, and 14th Amendment disagree. Alongside the far-right NRA, they actually made a statement following Alex Preddy's death, responding to a U.S. attorney out of California that was arguing, you don't approach a cop with a gun or else you're going to get killed.
How can you
they went on Twitter and they said that, well, it is a very dangerous suggestion to say that people can die for, excuse me, one moment.
You good?
Yeah, yes, we're all good. We're all good. It was just some of the some of the cleaning personnel on property. Now
okay. Let me say this to you. You mentioned totality of circumstances and the fact that he had a pew in his possession. How could you possibly leave out the I mean, you literally said, if we look at the totality of the circumstances, he's got a gun, therefore unalive. How could you possibly say that?
Well, I was in the middle of a statement, but I wasn't able to finish it. What I wanted to finish that circumstance with is that merely being in possession of a firearm doesn't authorize an LEO to shoot and kill you because of the Second, Fourth, and 14th
No, it doesn't. But when you look at the totality of the circumstances, in this case, it does.
When we look at the totality of the circumstances, we also have to acknowledge that his gun was taken away from him before he was shot and killed.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So he was unarmed.
At the time of his death, yes, he was unarmed.
Okay. So
however,
his death wasn't warranted.
No, you can't justify that because you can't tell me that those officers didn't fear for their life. They didn't know if he had 1 gun, 2 guns, 6 guns, 12 guns, a bazooka, grenade. They don't know, Dean. You don't know what it's like to be a law enforcement officer.
That also doesn't justify the LEOs from taking their lives. When LEO performs a routine traffic stop, they don't know if this person has a firearm in their right hand under the seat or in between the crack of the center console and their seat. They don't know that. That doesn't mean that an LEO could approach a car in a routine traffic stop, point their service pistol at their head, and shoot and kill them.
You just made the case on why it's so important to comply with these people. You just made the exact case that every Republican, every person, every reasonable American thinks.
Make a case about compliance after we finish the adjudication of the clear fact that the LEOs weren't justified in killing Alex Preddy.
How can you say that when you don't know if those officers felt threatened or not?
Well, it's not about not knowing or knowing that they felt threatened. No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not about it's not about knowing or not knowing if they felt threatened. It's about determining if a reasonable officer in their circumstances would have reasonably felt threatened.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If an LEO is like super racist and is super racist and hates black people, And as soon as they're in the vicinity of a black person, they automatically feel threatened or feared for their life. That doesn't then justify the LEO taking out a gun, shooting and killing that black person. Because it's not about fear, it's about reasonable fear. So that's why in circumstances such as these, it's not horrible. That happens. Okay? That is the most common historical example of LEOs feeling unreasonably feared and then taking somebody's life. Okay? But now to finish my statement, because you interrupted me, it's not about determining if these officers feared for their lives. It's about determining if a reasonable officer in their situation would have reasonably feared for their life.
Okay.
And because he was unarmed, because he was on the ground, because he was on all four.
Well, he wasn't unarmed.
One moment. Because, yes, you just admitted moments ago that by the time they shot and killed him, he did not have a gun.
By the time he was
reasonably,
unalive,
I still have more to say, dude. You keep on interrupting me. What is it going to be, dude?
Well, I mean, you just been talking for like 30 minutes and you're saying the same shit over and over.
Well, I'm gonna put you on mute. And a big reason why I'm repeating some of the things that I say here, because you interrupt me, then I have to start over. But now to start from the top, it's not about determining if they felt feared for their lives. It's about determining if a reasonable officer in their situation would have felt feared for their lives. And we know that that's not the case, because by the time he was shot and killed, he didn't have a gun and he was on the ground on all four. And even before he had his gun taken away from him, he had it holstered, and merely being in possession of a holstered, legally permitted firearm does not authorize an LEO to shoot and kill you. And you tried to make the case, well, it was justified because he was resisting. But then I asked you for the evidence that he was resisting. I asked you to evaluate the cell phone footage of the totality of the interaction, and you kind of indicate to me one frame from any bit of the cell phone footage where he was resisting. But even if he was, once again, merely resisting, also does not amount to an imminent threat. At the end of the day, bro, what you and many others have to realize here is that this was a lawless, untrained thug, okay, that took the life of an innocent VA nurse merely because they were A, acting upon malicious intent and wanted to kill, or B, got overwhelmed and because of their lack of training, pulled out their gun, shot and killed them, demonstrating criminal negligence. Go ahead, Johnny.
Hey, can I talk now?
You know what? Actually, no, you can't. Because I'm gonna go ahead and thank a couple people real quick.
Yeah, I gotta thank some people too, man. I want to thank Pfizer for sponsoring Dean's fucking live and
shout out Pfizer. Yeah. DNC2, right? Thank you so much, Trev, for the $5. Who says, "Is this guy drunk?" Cops harass innocent people every day. Yup. Aria, thank you for the $2. Zumba Class, thank you for the $10. Who says, "Oh yes, a man saving a woman from them made them fear for their lives. Big scary man unarmed with legal carry is justified." Yup, absolutely. That's the way that Trump supporters think. Ronnie, thank you for the 10 on Super Chat. Who says, "From a retired LEO, the ICE agent was 100% to blame. He initiated aggressive contact instead of de-escalating." Absolutely, Rodney. Lord T, thank you so much for the 20 over on Super Chat. Let's get to it. Lord TW, show some love to Lord T down below, you guys. Lord T with the 20 says, "Police use of force levels, officer presence, verbal, empty hand, less than lethal. Officers can go one above what suspects does. Them killing Preddy for resisting doesn't work. Caller, Trump caused this." Trump did cause that, and then he defended it. Tori, thank you for the 20 on Super Chat, who says his logic is flawed. Oh, yeah, his logic is absolutely flawed. Appreciate you so much for that love, Tori. Let's get to it. Tori W's down below. Thank you. Then Sherry, thank you for the $10. Thank you for the 10 over on Super Chat as well, who says, "Bruh, they're not cops." Yeah, they're not cops. Thank you so much for the 10, Sherry. And then Anthony, thank you for the 20 over on Super Chat. Let's get 200 Anthony W's. Anthony with the 20 says, "That's why we are trained as black folks to comply so that we could all go home to our families. They have the power and quote unquote afraid for their lives, always in fear of being unalived by law enforcement." And that is the sad reality for so many people of color in this country today and historically. It absolutely is. And I'm so sorry that so many of you guys have to live with that fear. Same thing to Sean. Thank you for the 20 over on Super Chat. Sean actually didn't attach a message to that donation. Just sent it right on through. Appreciate you so much for that love, Sean. Make sure to please show some love to all of our supporters over there. Thank you guys so much. Let's quickly get caught up on Venmo, PayPal. Sarah, thank you for the $5, who says, "Guest keeps on saying that they quote unquote felt like he was a threat. You cannot base facts on feelings. Fact is that they were not in danger." And with the reinterpretation of Connor v. Graham and Felix last year, which would be you have to consider the totality of the circumstances, that fact alone is what would diminish the claim of self-defense. Thank you for the $5, Sarah. Same thing to you, Tom. Thank you for the $3. And then Tom, thank you so much for the $15 as well. He says, only 2 ICE agents have been murdered since 2003. Yep. Thank you so much for the $15, Tom. I appreciate you so much for that support. Same thing to Kyle. Thank you for the $20. Who says, I'm an armed security guard and I have more training than these ICE officers. I know that just because a man has a gun, it doesn't mean that he's an imminent threat. You are absolutely right, Kyle. And it's funny because you do have more training than these LEOs, these ICE agents. I bet that you had to get a little bit more training than 47 days. Appreciate you for the support, man. Same thing to M. Thank you so much for the $25 donation on Venmo. Let's get 250 MWs. M with the 25 says, I asked about what president you think was worst in history, but now I'm curious who you think the best was in history. I don't think I know enough about like every president that we've ever had to determine the best. But, you know, I definitely think like one of the best in modern American history was Obama, but even he had his flaws. I did really like the domestic policy under Biden, and I think that Biden will actually be looked at pretty like positively in the history books. Thank you for the $25. Same thing to Serena. Thank you so much for the $20 donation on Venmo, who says, you're such an inspiration and so happy and your girlfriend had a good day yesterday. Oh, thank you so much for the support, Serena. It's good to see you. Show some love to Serena. Kira, thank you for the $5. And then it looks like we're all caught up over there on Venmo. Let's also quickly get caught up on PayPal. Thank you so much, Kiana, for the $5 on PayPal. Kate, thank you for the 5. Francisco, thank you so much for the 5. And then Craig, thank you for the $20, who says, keep on pushing, bro. You know it, bro. I'll never stop what I do. I love it way too goddamn much. Let's get 200 Craig W's. Stephanie, thank you for the $12, who says, hey, Dean, longtime viewer. I love what you do. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And then Pro Lan. Oh my goodness. Pro Lan. Thank you so much for the $80 donation over on PayPal. Thank you so much for that support, LAN. I want to see 800 LANWs down below in that chat. LAN, that is beyond kind of you. That is absolutely fucking insane. Len with the 80 says, hi from Iceland. Thank you for educating people. Well, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for taking something positive away from what we do here. Like I just said, that donation is beyond kind. That's so much money, and I'm so very, very grateful for you. Shout out to you and love to Iceland. Thank you for the $80 donation. And with that, we are all cut up for now, guys. If you want to ask me a question or just support me in the stream, you can find the Venmo and the PayPal link tree in bio on TikTok, pin message on YT, and the handles at the top of the phone screen as well. Let's go ahead and take this this doofus off mute. You know, there's a very specific question I eventually want to ask you, Johnny.
Ask me, buddy. Ask me.
Well, it has absolutely nothing to do with immigration, nothing to do with ICE, and all to do with Trump. So I don't want you to see it as a pivot. Is there anything else that you'd like to say in the
No. I mean, we could. I'm sure you want to talk about him. You know, in the '80s, being a sketchy dude, and how he's got 34 felonies, all these things. I'm sure. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, here's what I want to talk about, Johnny. So, this is the most effective argument I have to change the minds of Trump supporters. Now, you happen to be a pretty pompous, cocky brat. And I want to see what you do with this argument. So, so Johnny, can we agree that sexual exploitation is to unjustly take advantage of somebody sexually?
I don't know if that's the truth for in a criminal sense, but yeah, sure.
Well, we're not talking about in a criminal sense. I think that the criminal definition of sexual exploitation is really weird. Okay, we're just talking colloquially. Okay, like we could agree here that sexual exploitation is to exploit somebody sexually, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and exploiting somebody sexually would mean to unjustly take advantage of somebody sexually, right?
It could. Yeah, it depends on depending on the circumstance, but yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay. So would an example of unjustly taking advantage of somebody sexually be to abuse your position of power over their position of vulnerability to further unconsensual sexual conduct?
Sure.
Okay. If Donald Trump had sexually exploited anyone, would you still support him as president?
As far as exploitation, yeah, I'd probably still support him. Yeah.
Why do you think that the president could be a predator?
Nobody said anything about being a predator. You said sexually exploiting a woman, or
yeah. If you sexually exploit women and girls, you're a sexual predator.
No, I don't think that makes you a predator. I think that makes you a human being male. You've never seen a good looking girl, Dean, and be like, man, hey, look at her. She's she looks great. You've never done that. I know you're young and you probably don't have much interaction with the opposite sex. You sit behind your computer and you probably spend most of your time inside. But I'm 35, and when I was growing up, there's this thing called locker room talk or whatever. It can be disgusting, right? It can be pretty chauvinistic and nasty, but it was a thing that happened.
So just to clarify with where we're at, we first agree on what sexual exploitation is. Unjustly taking advantage of somebody sexually. We then further clarify what it means to unjustly take advantage of somebody sexually. We clarify that could mean for a man to abuse his position of power to further unconsensual sexual conduct with a minor girl. And then in response, you tell me that, well, if Trump did this, you'd still support him as president, and it wouldn't make Trump a predator, it would just make him a man. And then you kind of went on to sympathize with those actions. So you sympathize with unconsensually sexually exploiting naked little girls.
the mental gymnastics you have to perform to get to that point. No, what I said was
that's what we're talking about, John.
No, we're not talking about that because that never happened. Trump was never charged criminally. He was never charged.
We haven't even started talking about Trump yet.
The Miss Teen
USA. We haven't even started talking about Trump yet. But
I know where you're going.
I'm really trying to clarify. So what did you mean moments ago when you said that sexually exploiting little girls doesn't make you a predator? It just makes you any man.
That's not what I said. You're very good at
taking what I want you to clarify. Clarify
flipping the script.
What did you say?
I said that exploitation, it can be there's a million ways to sexually exploit somebody. It happens all the time on TV. It happens in media. It happens
what did you mean when you said
you think a
sexually exploiting? What did you mean?
Exploited?
What did you mean when you said that sexually exploiting a woman or girl doesn't make you a man, or sorry, it doesn't make you a predator, it just makes you any man? What did you mean when you said that? Keep in mind, you said, Johnny, I also just want to clarify that right before you said that sexually exploiting a woman or a girl doesn't make you a predator, it just makes you a man, we defined what sexual exploitation even was. We brought up how it would mean to unjustly take advantage of somebody sexually. We went over how that can be a man abusing his position of power over the position of vulnerability of a woman or girl to further unconsensual sexual conduct.
It can also be the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
The core here of the way that we define sexual exploitation was to engage in and perpetuate unconsensual sexual conduct. So why do you think that engaging in unconsensual sexual conduct with a woman or girl is not something that makes you a predator, it just makes you any man?
When you're gonna listen, dude, listen very closely. You ready? Listen very, very closely. Sexual exploitation happens in many forms, right? The owner of the Dallas Cowboys, do you think he's sexually exploiting the cheerleaders because they run around virtually naked? That's sexual exploitation, Dean. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing as being a predator where you hunt your victim and do sexually explicit things to them. That's not the same thing. They're two totally different things, but they're both exploiting sexuality. Both of them, in both cases. So if a 50-year-old man is trying to find a 12-year-old girl online, that's exploitation.
So the fundamental difference between the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders and somebody who's been sexually exploited would be consent. And
they're both sexually exploited.
One moment. And the fundamental basis of what makes sexual exploitation would be unconsensual sexual conduct.
Right.
Okay. So now that we understand that the foundation of sexual exploitation is unconsensual sexual conduct, are you still going to argue that if you engage in sexual exploitation, engage in unconsensual sexual conduct, you're not a predator, you're just any man?
If it's unconsensual, then you're a predator. You're a problem.
Okay.
At that point.
Okay, perfect.
But do you think? Let me ask you.
So sexual exploitation.
Let me ask you.
So sexual exploitation doesn't just make you any man. Perfect. So now that we understand that sexual exploitation at its core would be some version of unconsensual sexual conduct, I want to ask you that question again. would you still support Donald J. Trump as president if you knew he was a sexual predator because he had engaged in sexual exploitation?
Like I said, if it was to the degree of sexual exploitation that I define as making a person a predator, then no, I would not.
Of unconsensual sexual conduct.
Say that again?
If it was to the degree of intentional unconsensual sexual conduct.
Then no, I would not support him, no.
Okay. So Donald Trump has admitted to engaging in intentional unconsensual sexual conduct.
He's admitted a lot of shit. You know,
what we're referring to here,
an old guy,
would be when he sat down with Howard Stern on his radio show in 2005.
So saying that was irrelevant.
And he told Howard Stern
because you're still going to support him
dressing
either way.
rooms of the naked women and girls at Miss Teen USA and Miss USA, look at their naked bodies, talk about how great they looked, and then leave, and he would get away with it. This is unconsensual sexual conduct because he's abusing his position of power as the owner of these pageants to barge into their dressing rooms to then take advantage of their position of vulnerability to look at them while they're naked.
And explain to me where the unconsensual sexual contact was by him making those statements. Conduct, sorry.
Yeah, the unconsensual sexual conduct would, as I just said, be him barging into the private women's only dressing room.
How do you know it wasn't consensual?
Bodies.
How do you know they didn't want him in there?
Well,
how do you know?
First and foremost, minors can't consent. Second of all, he said that he allowed himself to go into this space. So even if it was women, it would still be unconsensual. Because
how do you know they didn't want him in there? How do you know?
Because, as I just pointed out, he said he allowed himself, and he didn't say that the women allowed him in. Second of all, the women have said that he just barged in uninvited, like Tasha Dixon, Miss Arizona from 2001. And then third of all, at the end of the clip, he says he got away with it. If he had the consent of the women, he wouldn't have got away with anything because it would have been perfectly fine.
Okay, so where you still haven't proved to me that he's a predator, as you called it.
Yes, because I've proved to you that he's engaging on.
You proved to me that he walked into a room of girls undressing, and then he said that he walked into a room.
What kind of room?
He said that he walked into a dressing room.
What kind of room? A private women's only dressing room?
You know, it was a private women's only. You can prove that.
Yes.
Can you?